Here we go. All right. So welcome everyone. It's the October meeting, and we'll do a quick overview of the upcoming events. So we've had a real change on schedule. So on the 10th, which is a couple of weeks early, we're going to have a wildlife photographer named Hector Astorga. He's going to do Becoming a Better Wildlife Photographer. And I'm going to let Barney kind of talk about him in just a minute. But we then switched the regular monthly meeting to be the peer mentor meeting, and that'll be on the 17th. That'll avoid us slipping over into the Thanksgiving holidays. And also everybody be aware that we'll be sending out the Teton Photography Club survey in December. So please fill it out and get it back to us. So I've got a little blurb up here about Hector, but I'm going to let Barney kind of chat. He's actually seen this man do presentations and talk to him. So
look at this.
Yeah, I don't know. I think most everybody on this call and in the club is very interested in improving their skills and shooting wildlife. And Hector's in what I regard as the top tier of wildlife photographers in the country. And he's not only quite knowledgeable, but he's also entertaining. He runs he's from Guatemala, and he runs a ranch down in Texas. And if you're into shooting birds, the migrating birds that come up from Mexico into the U.S., it certainly is on my bucket list to spend some time down in his ranch because of the way he sets up his ground level blinds. And the way he brings these birds in for some really interesting settings and photography. So we've got him November 10th, 6:30 Mountain Time. If you have friends and family that might be interested in this, or if you're involved in other clubs and they might you think they might be interested, please invite them to attend. I think David, you're sending out, or will send out the link for the meeting. So I hope we can have a good turnout of 20 to 40 seats zooming in for Hector's presentation on the 10th.
yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
David, how soon
Yeah.
will you be sending that out? I spoke to somebody who's a new photographer that might be interested in it.
I think I'll get that out a little early because the meeting's early. So I'll try to get it out in the next couple of days.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, moving on. I used this quote in the last "What do I do?" but I just think it's a really good example of what we're going to do tonight. It's from Ansel Adams. The negative is comparable to the score, and the print is the performance. So we're going to move on. Tonight's performer is Michael Cohen. So, and what we're going to do, we'll introduce each image and ask the photographer to make a comment. We say we have a panel, like I'm the second person here, but Michael will, I'll chime in, but he's going to be doing all the editing. So with that, let's get started. I'm going to turn it over to him in just a second here. All right, it's all yours, Michael.
Share my screen. And just a clarification, we're all gonna work on these images together. It's not just me and David. In fact, it isn't even me and David, it's you guys. And we're gonna try different things, and I have all sorts of tools at my disposal. We're working in Lightroom, we've got Photoshop, we have other things if we want to try them. Let's just go through. There are some really cool images here, and I think we'll just go in order. And this one's from Rick. Is Rick on tonight?
I don't see it.
Oh, I really want to know where this is. There's Factory Butte. Anybody know where Factory Butte is?
I think that's down in southern Utah.
Yeah, that looked like it could be possible.
Yeah, it definitely looks
Yeah.
like it's near the swell or
I'm gonna say, I think it's east of Capitol Reef.
Cool. So you can all see this. I'll let you see it in full screen for a second. And where do we begin? Looks like this shot at f11 1/30th of a second, ISO 400. So we'll have to see if there's a little bit of noise. Let's see if we can tell what camera it was shot with. It was, I don't know. So we don't have that in the metadata. So he stripped it out. But we'll have to see if there's any noise in here. Yeah, there's a little bit of noise, so maybe we can do something about that. But someone throw out a suggestion as to what we need to do here.
Doesn't look level to me.
That is a good call. Who said that?
Arnie,
All right, so there's a couple of ways that we can level this out. Probably the thing that I would do as a first try is to take my little tool here and make an assumption that the top of this butte is, whoops, I don't want to do that, that the top of this butte is, oh, did they move?
You updated.
Oh, they moved everything. Hold on.
Hit R, you'll get it.
Yeah, I did. So we're gonna, that the top of this butte is level for a second and see if that works.
So Michael, what tool did you use?
I used the crop tool in Lightroom, but that looks tilted the other way, doesn't it?
to me it does, yes, too much.
Yeah, so let's bring it, even though that doesn't look quite level, let's try that. Does that look better?
I think it's, yeah,
Maybe
it's
even
better,
maybe a little bit more.
a little bit more.
Yeah.
How about that?
yeah, it looks good.
That looks good. All right, good call.
Just for argumented sake, that is not, it's, that butte is not really level because you've changed the perspective of the view. From where that is, that leading edge is closer towards you. So it should appear a little bit higher than that trailing edge, that far end.
Yeah,
But
so
that's something that would be very subtle to pick up. But if you look at I had the advantage of Googling where this was, and I saw a series of images that were taken along with it. And of course, the perspective just really jumped out at me.
So right now, we've got probably, I don't know, a 2-degree angle here. You think that's enough, Barney, or does it need to be?
I think it's fine the way it is, and that's how I would do it. But
Yeah.
but I think in reality, if you're there, you'll see it's a little bit different. But Michael, I wouldn't change it. No.
Yeah. We're making art, kids.
Yeah.
What else?
We have a lot of work that you can do on the sky.
So one of the things that we typically do is we go through a standard workflow, and we could do that, or you guys can call out suggestions. Anyone have a thought as to which way we would go?
Could I suggest that we start with the like 2 or 3 or 4 things that need to be corrected, or the suggestions about what need to be corrected, and then we could go into how to do it?
So the first thing that we would do, or that I would do, is I would do a profile lens correction. So did you see what happened there? So this was shot with a 70-200 Canon EF lens. And without it, there's a tiny bit of barrel distortion. And as soon as I correct it, does that come in through the zoom? Can you see that flatten out?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's always the first thing I do. And I generally actually do that on import so that I don't even have to do it with my images. And then the next thing that we would typically do is we would look up at the histogram and we would see that there's a big gap between where the blacks right now are and where they should be, which is down here. And there's a bigger gap at where the whites are. And then we would want to look at our image and say, well, gee, are there really some blacks in here? And I think the answer is yes, because there's some blacks over here. There's some blacks in these lines here. There's some blacks in these hills over here. And in terms of whites, there's some whites here. There's probably some whites in here. And so if we want to stretch this histogram, the way we would do that is we would use the black and the white. And the first thing I would do is I would turn on the clipping, those little boxes that just appeared by hitting the J key on my keyboard. And if I turn on the clipping as I move the whites up to make things more white, then if I go too far, I'm going to see all this red, which is all the clipping. So I'm going to bring that back until the whites are whiter. And that may be a little too much, but we can move that back. And then we take the blacks and we move it down until we start seeing the clipping down here where the real blacks are. And I'm going to bring it back just before we clip it. And so if you look at the original and you look at the change with lens correction and clipping, you're already starting to see a little more punchy image.
Michael, could you accomplish the same thing, stretching the histogram by putting an S curve in there?
You could. So let's go back and try that. So if we reset this here and we go to the tone curve, we could sort of give that what you're talking about, an S curve that kind of gives the same thing. And some people do it that way, but you're still going to need to do a few other things to it. But we can sort of work with that now. That's fine. And so now that we've done that, the next thing I would probably do is bring up some shadows a little bit. Probably not too much. And now I'll let you guys take over.
Michael,
Yeah, go ahead, Barney.
could you zoom all the way in on the edge that is closest to the left hand side of the butte? And I just want to, so you see what's happening there. You see the halo starting to develop.
Yep.
You got to be careful of that. It's just, and that's what we can get into with especially with the shadow and the clarity sliders are very prone to generating halos in our images where we have dark to light changes. So it's just something to be aware of. You can correct it later on, but if you push it too far, you're going to see that show up.
So Barney, what is the mechanism then to correct it?
Well, you have to back off. Well, there are a couple of ways to do it, which involves luminosity masks, which are completely different subject. But basically, it's you can duplicate this image and work on one half and then work on the other half and then combine them. And when you do that, so you work on the butte and the lower section, you work on the sky separately, and then you blend them together, and you don't have that halo issue. So it's just, all I'm saying is just be careful when you're using those two sliders and you have that type of transition between dark and light. Because it's just the way those two sliders function that can generate halo.
So if I were to
D8s, for example, doesn't do that.
bring the shadow up much more, you can see in here, you're really creating a problem. And also over here, right down this line. So, you know, I'm going to back this shadow off to about where I was before. You know, using the shadows is doing a little something, but do we think that maybe this image is slightly underexposed?
I do.
I actually think you need to treat the sky differently than the landmass. And with the new version that you've got, the Lightroom Classic current version,
Yeah.
doesn't it have a quick sky selection tool?
It does, but before we use that shortcut, let's try to do it the old-fashioned way.
Okay.
We actually bring the exposure up a little bit, maybe half a stop. And we're going to need to add some contrast or something a little bit later. So now we've created a problem up here. And the old way that we would do this is we would use a gradient and pull it down here. And then we would want to get rid of this because we only really want to work in the sky, right? So in order to do that, we would open up a mask. Oop. Oh, this thing is all new. I got to figure out how to do it.
They have a subtract tool on the, once you create the linear gradient,
Yeah, but
there's
I
a subtract option.
don't want to do that yet. Hold on.
Okay.
I'm going to make sure I'm doing this right. We have a gradient. No, I think we have to start over again. So we pull this gradient down. We want to get rid of this. And I guess what we have to do is create a mask. And we need to use either a luminance or a color. And let's try the color. And if we take out this color, no, I don't want this mask. Oh boy, they've really changed everything, haven't they? How do I put in the new mask? Ah, intersect, there we go. Intersect mask for the color range. Let's see what that did. And so now we have to invert it. Where's the invert?
It's in the upper right. Keep going up. There you go.
No, thank you. So now we can darken the sky without, well, having too much of an impact on the butte. So I'm going to darken it just a little bit. The other option is, let's delete this whole thing. And now we can try what, I don't know who that was asking. Select sky. So it says it's detecting, it's working. And let's see what it does. One moment. So there it is.
Oh, wow.
And now we can use the exposure. We can take it down a little bit. We can punch up the whites a little bit. We can bring down the blacks a little bit, make it a little bit more dramatic. You can maybe raise the clarity a little bit to make that sky have a little bit more drama.
It's making that range in the background that's on the left-hand side look strange to me.
Doesn't it?
I
Yeah.
agree.
We could probably use a brush and clean that up. I'm just going to dehaze it a little bit. We can get it back to where it was. Not that much. Just a little bit there. Let's leave it there. So here's where we are. Here's where we started. Here's where we are now. I think we might want to punch this up with a little bit of clarity or some texture. There's a lot of texture in here. So there's texture. If I take it out, that's what clarity looks like. That feels good. How does that feel to you all?
Looks nice.
Can you magnify it?
So let me show it to you on the screen. And what part do you want to magnify?
Oh, just any of the detail on, say, the right-hand lower part of the butte?
Like around here?
Maybe the ridge in the middle, the kind of ridge line in the middle. Yeah, right in there.
Let it load so it's focused.
Right. When you guys were talking about the halos along the edges of the butte, are you seeing them more pronounced now?
Yeah, and it's from adding the clarity. And it's also from what we did in the sky. See, if I take the clarity out, it comes away. So one of the ways around that, and I don't want to spend too much more time on this image, but if we take the clarity out and we decide that what we want is more clarity in here and more clarity in here, and we want to stay away from the edges here, we can brush it in.
Ah,
So if we take a brush and we, let's say, bring up the clarity to about a 50, and we just brush it in away from the edges, we can kind of accomplish the same thing without creating those halos. Right? So now we've brushed that clarity in, but now we don't see it along the edges because I've stayed away from right here. You still see a little bit from what we did to the sky mask. But that's one of the things, if you don't want to create these halos, just use the brush and brush in, you know, just inside the edges of where you want it to add clarity.
could we talk about dust in the sensors and whether this, I don't know if this sky has any dust issues, but if you had a lot of dust and it was showing up in a really ugly way in the sky, is there a quick fix to fix everything?
One here. And let me do this really quickly. Where is the spots tool now? Is it in here? Nope. Where'd they move the spot tool to? Barney, do you know where they put it?
I think did you see it right? So move over to the left a little bit. Is that it right there?
Band-Aid maybe?
Yes, that's it.
So they changed the icon.
Yeah, they changed a lot. I haven't spent a lot of time with it. I just
I haven't either.
played around with it for a little bit.
Let's just talk a quick about sensor dust. So one way to do it is you find the sensor dot and you can do it here. The easier way to do it is you go down here after you've opened it up and you hit visualize spots, and it will show you where the spots are. And sometimes you have to move this slider to see them if they're faint. So here's this one up here.
Was there one on the kind of far right also? Like
Yeah.
in,
I don't know if it was a spotter or if it was a sun thing, but I see it there.
Yeah.
So let me clean up that one and then I'll go back to the other one.
I like that visualize spots thing. That's pretty cool.
So that one's gone. And there was one over here somewhere.
I think that went away when we rotated the image right at the beginning.
Could be.
Oh, maybe.
Might be something here, but I'm not gonna think about that. So let me close that. So again, that's where we started, and with a few tweaks, that's where we are. And let's move on to the next one, shall we, David?
Yep.
Just a quickie here. This is before the new stuff came out. This is what I came up with. I don't know how it's working out.
Yeah, so you did a little bit more enhancement in the sky. You looks like you
Yeah,
want.
I can't remember specifically what I did. I probably put some saturation and some HSL and whatever to get those beautiful
Right.
oranges in the sky. If folks have not been down to Factory Butte to take photos, you're missing out. It's a
Yeah,
beautiful place.
It's a gorgeous picture, Rick. Thank you.
Thank you. I kind of figure we might start using the new toys.
Yeah, except I don't know where everything is yet.
Yeah.
All right, so this is David's image. You want to tell us about it, David?
I just shot this from a kayak. You see a lot of fishermen, and because you're moving, you don't really have a chance to, every once in a while you get, the nice dark behind and them just lit by the sun, but you get a lot like this that are kind of flat looking. So we'd see what we can do with it to try to save it.
Mm-hmm. So we can sort of start doing the same initial workflow. We can enable the profile. And then, we can either do the tone curve or we can work with it, bring up the whites till it clips and bring down the blacks till it clips. And that really does help the image an awful lot right away. So now that we've done that basic stuff, what else are you guys thinking? Anyone have a question about composition here?
I'm wondering if it would help it to crop a little bit off the left.
I agree.
Yeah.
So this gives us a little bit of a dilemma, and I'll show you why. So if I start cropping this from the left, tell me when to stop.
Yep. There.
Maybe go up from the bottom left.
Yeah, then I have to come up from the bottom a little bit. And I gotta kind of stop about there because I don't want to mess with this reflection.
Actually looks good.
So yeah, so we've got to come from top and bottom, And now we've sort of got him in a much better spot, don't we?
Yep.
And what else do we want to do with this?
How about a linear gradient on the bottom to kind of create a little bit of darkness to force your eye up toward the fisherman?
Yeah. Out there?
Yeah, or, you could make it wider and that would make the rest of the water look not quite so bright in relation to it. Yeah.
And let's bring the saturation up a little bit and maybe pick up some color in the reflection. Okay, good suggestion. Anything else? So I really like this line. And I would like to see these trees darker to make this line pop out. How might we do that?
Would you use contrast or some way?
Let's try, that's one thought.
Maybe just selectively where the trees are?
So that's an idea. I was thinking maybe we can use the HSL panel and use luminance and bring this color down a little bit. I don't know if that helps or not. No, it looks like it's affecting more of the water. Well, maybe we could try a gradient and bring up the contrast. Yeah, that helps.
I think that's doing it.
Increase the whites, increase the whites. See if that does it.
Yeah, it's picking up too much of the trees.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
Well, then you can see if you can compensate with the blacks.
I mean, we might be able to take a brush and just use sort of a smallish brush and go right along here and then just bring the whites up. Let's see if that does anything. And now we just use the whites. Yeah, that helps a little bit.
I think that helped.
Yep. And then the only other thing I think we need to do with another brush is saturate that red. Whatever that is. All right, so let's see what we've done here. That's where we started without the crop, and that's where we are now.
And it's just too bad you know when
really-
you get photos like this, you can't, that bank behind him,
Right.
you know, it's just such an issue because it's always takes away from the main subject.
Yep.
Are there any new tools in the version you're using that would allow us to select the bank without getting the fisherman and then darken that?
The only thing that may work is let's try and select the subject. And see what it decides is the subject. Okay, and so what if we
Now invert, yeah.
invert that and then take the whole thing down?
Then you get the fly line going down too.
Yeah, but there's still plenty of it, I think.
But you could add back in with the brush in the masking tool.
I mean, I could really, if you really want to go crazy with this bank, is I could bring it down a little bit and just. No,
How did you get to those tools?
from the little icon right here.
Okay, thank you.
So now we've really done a number. So look, that's where we started, and that's where we are. Pretty good.
I'm impressed with the subject selection tool.
Yeah, that's not
Nice.
pretty amazing.
And if we just zoom in to see how good the mask is pretty good. May want to take some of this noise down a little bit, shall we? Come on. In. I like it.
Oh boy, I got a whole bunch of those pictures I can play with now.
So this is Arnie's.
So this was taken at our city park, summer concert series. I was intrigued with the guy's tats. And then after looking at it, I thought it was really kind of busy. So I was wondering what everyone thought, how we could change that a little bit. I ended up cropping this considerably. And, I like the way it turned out, but I'm just interested on what anyone else might do with it.
So from an exposure and from a black and white point, I mean, this is in really good shape right out of the camera. So great job on exposing it, Arnie. What do y'all want to do with it?
My inclination for an image like this would be to the priority would be to eliminate as much of the background as I possibly could. And I would think about this in a black and white format, and then trying to darken that background, and see if I can hold the subject. Especially that guy on the left-hand side who's facing he's so bright that my eye keeps getting drawn to him.
So you want to do a conversion?
So I would do black and white on this and see what I could do as far as you can try and select the subject again and then invert and then lower the exposure in the background and see if you can get it close to dark without having him kind of look unreal.
So here's a great example. So it has picked up some subject matter that we actually don't want. And it has missed some subject matter that we do want. So what we can do is we can subtract with a brush. Let's take the auto mask off because it's working too hard. And before I get close to here, I'm going to actually turn the auto mask back on, but let's just get a lot of it done. We're going to make this a little bit down and dirty. Now, let me ask you all a question. Do you want the microphone to be part of the subject, or do you want to make it go away?
I think I would make it go
Part of the
away.
subject, part of the subject, I think.
Two different points of view.
Okay.
Yes, two people get three opinions, right?
Well, it's in the same focal plane.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
where I say you want to leave it in.
So then I'll put the auto mask back on and see if I can get this pretty good. So this isn't going to be perfect, so, but you'll get the idea. Now this is really tricky in here, right? So we'll get close. Okay, so I think we have the subject isolated from the background.
You gotta add, don't forget to add the back of the horn.
Right. I think,
Invert.
and I'll leave the auto mask on for this. And it's spilled over a little bit, so now I'll subtract with the brush. How does that look? Pretty close?
I'd say so.
Yep.
Now we want to invert it, right?
Uh-huh.
Ah, we have to add these masks together.
Oh,
Let's see. That's not right. So we want to take this subtraction. We want to invert this first, I think.
Michael?
Yeah.
I watched some videos of today, and I think the strategy in doing this is to create a mask, and let's call it subject. You're allowed to name these various masks,
Right.
and then to do a background, create another mask. See the add button there?
Yeah.
You would add another mask.
Yeah, that's what I did.
The background one.
So we've got this mask here.
In other words, it's a totally different mask. See where it says mask 1?
Yep.
If you clicked on add, you'd get a mask 2. And then you could do various things underneath mask 2.
So then let me delete these. Delete brush 1, delete brush 2, delete brush 3.
Well, you're
Now we have a subject mask.
well, your subject, you'd want to clean this up and then let that be your subject. Kind of I don't know, can you do edit, undo in this system, the new system? I think you got one more that you didn't want. This I would consider to be the subject mask. Go to where it says mask.
Yeah.
Up there, see the little, rename, make that subject mask. Okay, click OK.
Yeah.
Now,
Create a new mask.
create a new mask.
Okay, but where is let's see, so this mask is not, this is not the subject mask. You know what, I think we need to start over again, hang on. So let's just select the subject. And then we'll name that.
Okay,
Okay, so this one we're gonna call the subject mask.
okay. Let's not bother with the other thing, because we want to spend time. Make this the subject mask.
Okay, then we're gonna add another mask,
Create another one.
and we're gonna brush.
I would actually, to get a background mask, I would say select subject again and then invert it. And that'd be your background, would it not?
Well, no, because we've got to worry about this guy.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We only got so much time for each one of these. I would ignore the fact that you've got this guy, the other guy in the background, just to find out how these tools work and how you should use them.
Yeah, so how about if I invert it? We're gonna call this background,
The background.
but let's modify it and intersect it with a negative brush.
Okay.
And this is not doing what I want it to do. Well, before we do any more, let's just see what happens when we work with it. So if we were to include this guy, I guess we need to go back to the mask, invert it, and then we need to take the exposure down. So the point is, if this guy were in that mask, we can see how effective it is taking everything else down.
Yeah.
You know, we could probably just go the old-fashioned way. And just grab this guy, especially the bright parts of him,
Yeah.
and just bring him down a little bit. Right? And then maybe up here, take this down. And then after we finish that, maybe we want to crop this.
That's what I ended up doing. I really cropped him all the way, and I eliminated the guitarist completely.
I actually kind of like this bokeh up here.
Yeah.
You know, I would say this one right here, I would probably want to bring down a little bit, you know, maybe a stop. No, not quite that much. Like about there. So that's where we started. So Barney, I like your black and white idea. Arnie, did you make it color or black and white?
No, mine was black and white. I'd almost like to try to show it to you, but I don't know how to do that, or if that's even possible, or if anyone's interested.
You know, the other thing that you could do is there's an old sort of grunge kind of thing where you give it an awful lot of clarity and you add a little bit of grain to it, etc. You know, to give it sort of a grungy look.
Right.
Which I kind of like. It gives it a more urban feel to it. All right.
Did you consider using the black and white profiles?
We just did a black and white conversion and then just.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm back to Arnie. You
No,
said
I
you
did
did
not.
Black and white, did you?
No, I do not.
Okay.
The other thing that you could do, this is sort of greenish. So you can go into what it was the HSL panel and you can pick up this color and you can also bring it down that way.
Okay.
Michael,
Yeah.
one other suggestion, go on back to your starting color image that you set up.
You want me to go back to the beginning?
No, I mean, just wherever your last color image was. Now, if you click on black and white and then go to those 4 boxes underneath it.
Yeah.
Look what you got.
Yeah, you got some choices here.
You got some starting places.
Yeah.
That I never knew that existed
lot
until
more
a
if
week
you-
ago.
There's a lot more if you scroll down in that box.
Um,
Actually, a section called black and white.
Another thing, if you wanted to keep it in color and give it more of that urban look, you could increase the clarity even more and then bring the saturation down,
Right.
Yeah,
which is also a really nice effect.
I like that. That's
Yeah.
nice.
You know, and then again, I would probably go back in and take him down maybe a third of a stop or so. Just get some of his. There.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of interesting options. So there's a black and white version, and there's a sort of an urban color version. Good shot.
Thanks.
Who's next?
Interesting. Thank you.
Welcome. I kind of like the color version, I think, now that I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I do too. You know, I didn't to start with, but I do now.
Almost a split tone kind of effect.
Yeah,
It's nice.
I've come around on the microphone. I think it's a good idea to have it in focus.
well, you know, I think you need the microphone to modify the trumpet.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So this is also Rick. So where are we, Rick?
Yeah, this was taken in Mammoth Hot Springs up in Yellowstone in early September. As you can tell, this is straight out of the camera. You could tell the sky was really funky.
Yeah.
Actually, what I wound up doing was using a sky replacement feature in Photoshop.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Lightroom stuff to do the other stuff, and then cropped out my shadow in the lower left-hand corner as well.
Does anyone think this looks tilted?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
About like that? Maybe a little too much. Hold on.
It looks good.
Like that.
Bring up the bottom to get my shadow out of the lower left-hand corner there.
Oh, yeah.
You know, these features up there are really hard to shoot because you do get the background out of the valley. So actually, I think the sky helped here because you had nice light on the feature itself.
So I'm going to adjust the whites and the blacks and watch what happens here. I mean, this is like crazy cool. Look at that. That's unbelievable. Just doing that, look at the difference. And we're going to honor Arnie, and I'm going to change the aspect ratio of this a little bit, which is going to give it a little bit more of a panorama. 16:9. Why don't we just give it a 16:9? Not quite that much. And even though we sort of arbitrarily changed it, and then I changed it to a 16:9. The reason I changed it to a 16:9 is because that's a more standard format. And if you're gonna do anything with this, like print it or whatever, it'll fit in someone's home better if it sort of matches standard format of other things in their home. So that's why I did that. And I got to tell you, I don't know what you guys think, but now that this whole foreground is so crisp and poppy, the background doesn't bother me so much anymore.
Yeah, I think you got great light on that.
Yeah.
You can play with that background a little bit, but
You know what I might do is use the hue tool and give this sky a better color. You know, maybe give it.
Why don't you use a target adjustment tool there?
Yeah, that's what I'm using. And then maybe you could make it a little bit brighter. Does anyone want to do anything with this, or are we good with it?
You know, above all the whites and the beautiful different colors and whatever, to me, it just seems so bland. The sky and that mountain back there just seems so bland. That's why I submitted and see other folks had other ideas of what to do with that problem area for me.
Well, we could sort of.
What about cropping it so that all the sky comes out and making it more of an abstract about the layering of the colors and the thermal feature?
Try it quickly. It's non-destructive.
So there's a way to pop that a little bit. I used dehaze and then I brought the exposure back up. And that gives it a little bit more crispness.
Why did you bring the contrast?
So that's what it looked like before.
Yeah.
And that's what it looks like now.
Yeah. If I saw correctly, you brought the contrast down on the contrast slider. It was on the mask or
Yeah,
on the overall.
Yeah, I tried first with contrast, it didn't work.
Yeah. Okay.
So here's where we started.
Ooh.
Isn't that remarkable? And we haven't even touched saturation or vibrance or clarity or anything. I mean, if we were to actually pull up a little bit of clarity on this, woo, and a little texture, woo, look at that full screen. Loading, loading, loading.
How about a little S curve on the tone curve? What's that do?
Yeah, I mean that'll punch it up even more. We could certainly do that. I wouldn't do too much.
Oh,
I wouldn't do more than that. You know, maybe highlights up just a little bit more. That looks great, guys. That would look good on my wall.
Thank you all.
Is Randy here?
I don't think so.
Okay. So let me shut the clipping off. So this is the back side of the Teton, so to speak. And he shot this at ISO 100 at 20th of a second. And it looks like he had a tripod because it's nice and sharp, not thin. You can see some artifacts in here. Wait till it sharpens up. It fully loads, but you'll see some artifacts in here, which is interesting because he hasn't processed this. So you see this little halo? That's a little bit of chromatic aberration, so maybe we can take that. Oh, he's already taken it out. So what would y'all like to do to this? 'Cause this is intentionally exposed, I would suggest.
I'm wondering if there's a way to layer the different ridges in there to give it more depth.
Now, you know, you'd have to lighten this one up, darken this one a little bit, and
Yeah.
maybe lighten this one or something like that, but maybe you could do that by reducing contrast without brushing every one of them. So if you reduce the contrast and then take the exposure down a little bit, I don't know if that increases the layering.
It doesn't seem to, and at least to me, now you get more distraction from the lighter areas on the
Yeah.
ridges that didn't show in the original.
I'm trying to give you the original, but I've got a spinning ball here. So there's the original. Oop. And there's the change. Original.
I'm
change.
wondering if there's any color in the skies that could be brought out. You don't have your metadata panel, so we can't see what time of day he took this thing. Off the sun. I'm assuming it's a sunset photo.
Well, we could try to pick a sky.
Could you also try some dehaze, see what happens?
It'll get muddy, but yeah, I'll certainly try that in a second. It's still working on picking the sky out, guys. So there's your sky. One of the things that we could do is we could make it sunset.
That's fun.
Yeah.
So if we made it sunset, and then we brought up some of this, no, that doesn't work. Bring the blacks down a little bit more. Try bringing the whites up a little bit to create some layering. That doesn't work. I think the only way to create more layering is really to brush all this stuff, and that's going to be a little bit painstaking.
I kind of view the photo overall as a silhouette with if there's any content in the sky that when you bring out silhouette with the sky.
You want to take
a variance between this stuff in the lower right hand corner where it's really darker and in the mountains heading on up into the canyons there.
So it looks like someone put a mask in here. I'm going to take all these masks out. Ah, so this is the original photo. So Randy did a little something to it.
Yeah, like he was playing around with the new toys as well.
That's right. So
Yep.
now we've got the original. Now we would want to, you know, bring these highlights down for the sky quite a bit. And then to cool it off, to give it sort of the same effect that he did with the masks, we can do it like that. And he brought the, you know, if we bring the shadows up a little bit, we will create some layers. And if we want to very quickly brush this layer. And lighten it a little bit. And then we could this, and I'm going to do this really quick and dirty. And we can darken this. Now, and that will start to give you some better layering. You know, we'd have to do a better job in here, obviously. And then we could darken this here. So there's a whole bunch of different treatments for something like this. And it really becomes a matter of taste. So when you start with, let's go back to the, that's what we started with. So there's an awful lot you can do. Beth?
Oh, I love it.
Yes.
About Mr. Ed here?
Yeah. So I was shooting the horses to the right and I heard Mr. Ed here. And so I turned around and shot because there wasn't enough time to change the exposure.
Were you shooting manual?
Yes.
So you shot this at a 400th of a second at f4, smack into the sun.
Yes.
Right.
Put your hands
Because
up so we can slap your hands.
What he was doing was interesting. He wasn't the original subject.
So
I wonder how select subject would deal with this over close photo.
So what would we like to do with this image? Because I actually think that there's a really cool image in here. But it's going to take a little work.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you can try and emphasize to see where you could go with it by knocking the exposure down or the highlights down and get an idea of how much detail is left.
If I take the highlights all the way down.
Click the little icon on the upper right-hand corner of histogram.
So nothing's, even if I get rid of the highlights, it's not blown out really too badly because I get rid of the blue.
Yeah, the horse isn't blown out. The
Yeah.
sky is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Surprising.
Right.
I got lucky.
So one of the things that's troubling me a little bit is this green tone. So if I add a little bit of magenta in here, not too much, but I can get rid of a little bit of this green maybe. Or I can take the color temperature down just a speck. You want to take the exposure down?
Absolutely. That'd be the first thing I would have done.
How far?
Oh,
Slide it all the way and come back off from there.
They win.
oh. Yeah.
There?
Great backlighting on the chin whiskers.
Yeah.
Yeah, right here. Beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
What else?
What would a sky replacement do here?
I'll go into Photoshop in a minute. Let's do a little bit more in Lightroom first.
So sky replacements in Photoshop?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Well, they do have the sky replacement in the new Lightroom, right?
Sky selection, not
Unless you can really work some magic in Photoshop, about the only thing I see potentially redeeming this value is do a crop of just the mouth and the chin whiskers there, and just make it some kind of a funny photo.
I was thinking the very same thing.
Yeah,
You guys are getting to what I've got to.
and entitle it, "What's this?" or something like that.
It looks like something out of the Aliens movies.
Yeah.
What if I take the black?
I think you need to have more of the horse head. That just.
So I'm taking the blacks way down. And then I'm going to bring some shadow back into it. And you're starting to sort of get a little bit more of the horse, and you're keeping all this beautiful chin whisker. You know, the other thing that we could do is we could change this into a square and keep a little bit more of the horse. Maybe slide that over a little bit. No, not as a black, well, maybe as a black and white. We could take the exposure down a little bit more and try to make it more of a silhouette by bringing the whites up.
Just adding too much of lens flare there.
Yeah, that lens flare is kind of cool though.
Reach his own.
Yep. Now, if we wanted to do a sky replacement, and remember, when we do a sky replacement, we have to think about what else is going on in the image. And we've got a very clear indication from this and from this that there is a sun showing. So we can't like make it a cloudy sky replacement, right? So we've got to pick a sky that's going to be appropriate. As soon as Photoshop opens here, we'll take a look at some of our options. I can tell you that I used sky replacement in an image that I had printed about a week ago, and it really looks good when you keep it subtle. Oh, what happened? It's not finding my Photoshop.
It's supposed to automatically go to Photoshop.
Let's see what happened here. Edit and oh, because I was editing in the wrong Photoshop. Well, we're not going to be able to do that because for some reason Photoshop didn't come in. So forget that idea. So let's go back to the Lightroom image.
You do a Command E?
Yeah.
You did the, okay. all right.
Probably created TIFF, so you probably can open it. You know, get out of Lightroom and get to the file on your computer and then open it in Photoshop.
It's going to take too long.
Yeah, okay.
But what we could do if we wanted to is we could select the sky. And then we can get a color. No, you can't even do that. There's absolutely no information there. So I think the only thing we can do is make it white or give it a replacement. But if we look at where we started, which was there, It's amazing how much information there is in a raw file that you can continue to use. Thank you, Beth.
Yeah, thank you.
Interesting. So I put this in here because this is actually a photograph that I shot on an iPhone 12 with in RAW. So the iPhone 12s allow you to shoot RAW. And I just wanted to give you guys a sense as to what is possible to do in an iPhone. So this is right out of the camera. So let's just process this as normal, just so you can see what the iPhone RAW, for any of those of you who have it, are able to do. So this was shot at a 500th of a second at f2, everything completely selected by the camera. And so what ought we do? I mean, we can sort of follow normal. So Lightroom recognizes an iPhone 12 and it did a lens correction. And we see the histogram. So we can bring the whites up, you know, just a speck, and the blacks down a little bit. And now what else would you like to do to this image?
I'd probably take a little off the bottom to make it.
You realize that you can double click the word whites and blacks and it will automatically try to set a point for you?
Yeah, you can, but I tend to.
Okay, all right. I want to throw it out to everybody so that everybody could know that that possibility is there, because you know it doesn't say so on the screen that you can do that. So
Rick, what was that again?
click, if you double click before Michael moved the whites and the black slider, if you double click on the word whites, it will automatically search for the white point. And if you click on blacks, it will automatically search for blacks. Double click on blacks, it'll search for a black point.
I'll show you that as soon as we get out of the crop tool. So
And
Dave,
again, it could be a starting point and you tweak from there. So, or you could do what Michael did. So,
do you want more sky or more?
I like the sky, just take off a little.
yeah,
off the
I
bottom.
think sky is part of the beauty of this one.
Yeah, I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, definitely so.
What the saying is,
Typically in skies, to make the skies better, I pull highlights back some.
so if I double click on this, it resets it to 0, Rick.
Or maybe it's an alt click on the whites or option or whatever kind of toy you're on. Yeah, there you go. Okay. I'm glad we straightened that out.
No, it's not. If I alt click, it does reset. Maybe command, nope. Maybe control, nope.
Oh.
Maybe, or maybe
That's something. Okay. Forget what I said then, folks. I misled you.
what else?
So I'm wondering, in a scene like this, for that kind of brownish grass over on the right side, yeah, is there a way to make it match the rest of the grass to be less distracting?
Uh-huh.
Well, that's a really interesting question. I think,
HSL.
yeah, we could try that. So if we go into the HSL panel and we pick, we're going to change the hue.
Yeah.
We'll use the selection tool and we can move the hue. The problem is it's picking up everything else.
Not picking up the green.
See, it's picking everything up because it's a little too close.
Okay.
So the other way to try to do this is we could go into the spot tool, watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to select the part I want to change. And it's going to pick up over here. And then I can change the opacity of the clone to give it a little bit of color. So that's with nothing. And that's with picking up some of it. And I guess a third way is we could brush it. And then we could try to warm it up and tint it.
Or use the hue slider there halfway down the.
No. Does that look better?
Yeah, that seems to be doing it.
What else would you like to do? I have a couple of ideas, but I'm going to hold them for a minute.
As I was starting to say earlier. Go ahead.
I think I would try to do a linear gradient on top to reduce the brightness at the very top of the photo.
Just bring the highlights down.
Some way, yeah, highlights or yeah, just to keep your eye from spilling off the top of the page.
Oh, is that better?
Yeah.
Anyone think this image is too cool? Watch what happens if we warm it up a little bit.
I'd hit it with texture.
Ooh, that popped.
You could add some texture to it.
Texture gives it a little 3D effect to it, I think.
Yeah. I'm a little.
What happens if you edge contrast up just a tiny bit?
Up?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm starting to lose this tree.
Okay.
So one of the things we could do to not lose the tree is we could take a radial filter and bring the shadows up a little bit. And that brings some of the tree back. See that?
Good move.
Started there, and we get right about there. That looks nice.
Excellent.
And I'm going to take the saturation down a little bit. So not bad for a camera phone, huh?
Yeah. How about a tone curve? S curve on the tone curve.
Sure.
Can I ask a general question about that? You said that's an iPhone 12, right?
Yeah.
And I have an iPhone 10, and I've added 2 apps at the suggestion of a Teton Photography Club meeting a long time ago, Cortex Cam and Manual. Do either of those give me with a 10 the ability to shoot in RAW? I thought that one of them did.
No, you have to have iOS 14 and an iPhone 12 to get RAW.
Okay.
And there's a lot here. I mean, even if you blow it up, there's a lot here.
Yeah.
So that's where we started, and that's where we ended up. This is Charlotte's. Charlotte here?
I don't believe so.
This is a cool image, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if we do lens correction, didn't do much. we check the white, so we're already clipping the whites. So we'll take the highlights down to get all the whites back. And then we can set the black point. It's pretty darn close to where it needs to be, right there. And what else are we thinking? Does anyone think that,
Might play a little bit with white balance.
does anyone think there's too much down here?
Yes.
Yeah, good point.
No, I don't want to lose the bottom of that icicle. How about right there?
Better.
Improvement.
Nice.
Boy, this is a holiday greeting card if I ever saw one. You can lay the type in right here. Happy holidays.
It is beautiful. So what happens with just a wee bit of contrast on that one?
So I actually the first thing I did was I brought some vibrance up
Okay.
to bring that green out really bit. Now let me bring some contrast up. And I'll tell you, Sue, I tend to not use the contrast slider because there's better ways to get contrast, but let me do it.
Oh, okay. So what are the better ways?
The better ways are using the white and black point and then using the tone curve.
Okay, thank you.
Because the contrast sort of is like a shotgun for contrast, and you end up like, if I don't really want more contrast in here, you know, where you want it is here. And so you can get it better ways, but I'll bring it up a little bit. You know, another way to get contrast is with dehaze.
Ah, okay.
So what dehaze is actually giving me sort of a nice effect here.
Dry texture.
Yeah, I mean, this is a nice textural piece, so you can bring up the texture too. So here's how we started. And we thought it was great to start with, but look where we are now. One of the things we haven't touched on, and I'm just going to do it here for drill, is how to set the white balance. And I think the white balance in here is pretty good, but the best way to set it is you pick up the eyedropper tool and pick something that is the closest thing you can find to a neutral gray, which maybe is here. And you just click on it. And so that actually warmed it up a little bit. And I would decide I don't like it that warm, so I'm going to cool it back down. I'm going to make it as shot because I think it was better the way it started. I'm pretty happy with that. Anyone else have another suggestion?
Vignette.
Michael, are you seeing a little bit of magenta? I'm seeing a little bit of magenta in those lower icicles.
Yeah, I mean, we could take a little bit out.
Yeah, just a bit. Yeah,
Better?
yeah.
Someone said vignetting. That's an interesting idea for this. Oh, what a good idea.
Yeah, it can go either way.
No, I don't like it. I don't like the white way. No, this is great. It really brings out that center piece.
Yeah.
What a pretty image. She's a great photographer. I'm telling you, I love her stuff. David, how are we doing on time?
Well, we're at 7:30. How many do you have left?
We've got 4. We're not going to make all 4.
No.
Do you want to do this one or skip it?
Why don't we skip that one?
So I'm not sure.
I have a quick comment for, I think Ann asked a while ago. I actually think you can get your iPhone to possibly, I know you can get it to shoot a D and G,
Okay.
if you're using the Lightroom mobile app.
Okay. Yep.
If you
Thank
have Lightroom mobile on your phone
Yeah, I
and let
do.
it access the camera.
Right.
So that's a different, it's a different information set than Apple Raw. So
Right.
yes, the DNG, but it's not going to give you the same level of,
I agree, but I mean, it might get you closer than just shooting.
Workaround.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I want to spend just 1 minute on this. This happens to be another iPhone picture that I shot at my cousin's bat mitzvah. And you all may find yourself in a situation where you're taking, family pictures or whatever with your phone. And I just want you all to realize what can and cannot be done with pictures, that you don't have to be satisfied with, sort of taking a lousy phone picture. So as you can see, this is an Apple Pro RAW format. And I'm going to do just a couple of quick things. I'm going to set the white balance, which is going to cool it off. I'm going to straighten it out so that it's level. I'm going to crop a little bit, which I've already done. And I'm going to add a little bit of sharpness to it. Where's my detail? Add a little bit of sharpness to it. And we take a pretty crappy picture and you can make a very decent picture. And the whole point of this is I want you guys to not always feel that you have to take your heavy camera. You can take your phone and you can make some pretty good pictures with your phone.
Michael, before you leave this one, click, go back to there. Click on the auto button. Just see what it does. Just poops and grins. Down there. Didn't do much. Okay. Times for portrait photos, that's my starting point. Because where people enter, I'll click on that auto, and I'm pretty close to being there without having to hit any other sliders to speak up, except maybe sharpening and vignetting.
Yeah. So the auto made it a little bit brighter and a little bit more contrasting.
Yeah.
This is a really interesting picture to work on, and I wish it wasn't a JPEG because we're not going to be able to do as much. But let's spend a few minutes making this picture better, and let's hear some suggestions.
Oh, that is wild. Well, do whatever you need to do to give it a little more contrast.
So we can set the white and black point. So we're pretty much already clipped.
Hmm.
You can set the black point down here. That'll give it something. We could come down here. That'll give it something.
That looks nice.
How about
Texture.
Yeah, but before we get to texture, how about we get rid of some of this crud and we really look at what this is a picture of? Better or worse?
Too much, I think, for me.
Better or worse?
That's more pleasing for me, for my taste. But
So I think this is using a little bit of shadow detail. So I'm going to try to bring back a little bit. Someone mentioned texture. Ooh, baby. Okay. Does anybody want to make this a black and white picture?
I do.
Yeah.
Do you ever go to luminance to see the different grades of black and white?
You mean up here?
click on the black and white.
Yeah, we're on black and white.
the profiles, click on the four
Yeah,
box.
Yeah, that's the same thing.
Okay, now click on black and white. BNW 17. And just highlight over there, and the whole photo will change based on the profile.
Mhm.
And pick one out you think's the best. And they say this is your starting point.
That one's kind of cool.
And all your sliders would be 0 when you select one of these. So you can go from there.
Anybody like anything in particular? I'm like 10. Too contrasty. So there's a couple of options. I didn't select one.
Okay. But anyway, if you do select one of those, your sliders will be at 0. So you can go from there.
So here's where we started. Here's where we are. All right, I'm going to do something crazy.
See?
Does that look upside down? Or does that look more abstract?
It's upside down, yeah.
Okay. Does that look sideways or does that look abstract?
Doesn't look natural.
Doesn't?
Does not look natural to me.
Right.
You know, there's another crop in there. That center section, this is probably just me imagining, but doesn't it almost look like a squid right in the middle?
Yes. That's an eye right there.
Yes, doesn't it?
Yeah, you could take off the part of the tree and
Yeah,
really have people.
it's got an eye there. Why don't you pull highlights back, see what that does. I wouldn't go
Interesting photo.
much, but I think it's better. It's pulled back.
This is the very beginning.
Yeah.
And we've already found 2 or 3 different pictures in here. And here's where we are at the moment, but we could spend all kinds of time. And I guess the point is, you know, when you look at a scene like this, you might not even be inclined to shoot it, but you know, this is Aaron Linsdow's picture, and I'll bet you that he shot 30 pictures of this scene, because there's a picture here. See this cat? There's a picture right here. There's another picture here. There's this whole thing. There's a horizontal picture up here. So there's an awful lot of stuff in this scene, which is really worth working.
Mm-hmm.
So this is another one of Aaron's, and this is a JPEG. So again, we're not going to be able to do a ton to it, but what do you think? What should we do? I'll tell you, setting the white and black point on this is not going to result in much, because I think that the exposure is terrific as it starts, but let's try it. Yeah, so you're already clipping, just barely clipping. And in the blacks, you're already picking them up right down here. So there's really nothing to do with the white and black point. How much does this add to the picture?
Yeah, I'm not sure that foreground adds much to it.
What if we made this a pano? Better or worse?
I like that better.
I like it better.
What if we punch it up with dehaze?
It's a little much.
Well, dehaze is like a bazooka.
Yeah.
Okay.
Texture. I'm a broken record on texture.
Here's the problem. So we're on a JPEG and texture is really sort of making this look cruddy. Look.
Yeah, I agree. But I'm a raw shooter, so.
Maybe we can give it a little bit of, we can give it a little bit of clarity and a little bit of texture.
Yeah.
Now, how about warming up the foreground? Give it a nice golden color.
Like it. That's nice.
You know, I could have put a mask up in here, but I'm not going to bother, but you get the idea, right? So that's where we started. That's where we are now. That's about as much as I think I would do to this. What do you think? And look at the original crop.
Isn't the foreground too much warmer than the range? I mean, isn't there like a delineation there that doesn't look real?
Well, what I could do is we could go back to this and I could stretch it out a little bit so that it looks a little, does that look any better or does it still seem too artificial?
It does to me, but I don't know, maybe
I could
I mean,
warm,
you know,
I could warm up the bottom. I could warm up the bottom of the mountains to give it even more of a transition.
that looks better to me.
Yeah. I could also desaturate it just a little bit. Does that feel better?
I like that better.
Yeah.
Too.
But I think that this golden color down here is a nice color. You know, the alternative is we could take this out and we could warm up the whole thing. Without hurting the mountains too bad. I'm going to back that off just a little bit. How about that?
I like that the best.
So let's look at the difference between doing it that way and doing it that way. That way versus that way. So now you have a cooler mountain, now you have a warmer mountain.
I like that one better also because the sky looks a little more natural.
Yeah.
The shade.
So that was a good suggestion. You know, you might even do a little bit of that.
How about a vignette just for try it?
I wonder if a vignette is going to look
Yeah, I'm
fun.
not sure either with this panel type looking shot.
Well, I just gave it a little bit. I wouldn't give it any more than that.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of vignetting, but when you have something that is so evenly exposed, you know, sometimes the vignetting makes it look weird.
Yeah.
So let's run back through all of our images. I'm in love with this picture, Arnie.
Yeah, that's great. I love that one.
Thanks.
This one we need to spend way more time on. That's a winner.
Yeah, good one.
All right, let's spend 2 minutes on this. What do we want to do?
Well, definitely needs sharpening.
You think?
And cropping.
Yeah, and cropping.
Yeah, let's crop the heck out of it. Let's see if we can isolate it a little bit. Feathering, there it is. What else? Anything, or is this beyond hope?
There may be a little too much of the light on them in the center, but
Think?
yeah, back off a little bit of that.
All right. How's that?
Better.
Yeah.
Looks like he's missing an eye, doesn't it?
Just not getting the catch light in there.
Yeah.
How about some sharpening or texture?
Well, you want to put a catch light in the other eye? Everybody know how to do that? Take your brush, bring it down to almost nothing. Put it right in the spot, just give it a click. And then turn your exposure up to +4. You get a little catch light.
Okay, cool.
All right.
That's cool.
I'd go with some texture. Since it's a raw file.
Better.
Yep.
So interesting, we went with some texture in here, but I think there's now too much texture out here. One of my favorite tools, oops. One of my favorite tools is negative clarity. And so I'm going to feather this a little bit differently. And I'm going to invert it. And now watch this. Ready? Like negative clarity. See what that does? It goes from there to there. It just de-emphasizes that background. Without affecting the texture. So that's where we started. So, I mean, honestly, it's not a fantastic picture, but I think we made it better.
Yeah. Good learning experience though.
Yeah. And then we went through this home snapshot. And then we had a pretty interesting workup on this JPEG. And then we created this panel. So what's interesting here, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 images. And we spent, what, an hour and 40 minutes? On 12, that's a little over 10 minutes per picture. And I think we made a lot of good changes.
Yeah.
And I think what it goes to show you is it doesn't take you an hour to make a significant improvement on an image. But what is important is to think about looking at the image. And the reason why we call this "what do I do" is because sometimes we just sit and stare at a picture saying, what do I do with this? And hopefully a meeting like this gives you an idea, by having everyone weigh in, gives you some ideas when you go back to your own images as to what are some of the things that you can do. And don't be afraid to try things, you know, because someone mentioned it, it's all non-destructive in Lightroom. So try stuff and see what works. And, you know, if it comes out terrible, don't show anybody. If it comes out great, show us all. So David, I'll give it back to you.
Well, like I say, great job, Michael. Thanks for everybody that sent something in, but great job doing the editing. And also, I think we all learned something about the new tools in Lightroom. So as soon as I shut this down, I'm going to go and download the updates. So
I have to learn a little bit more, I think.
It's going to take some time with it to get the feel for what you can do and how to do it and what you shouldn't do, etc.
But you know, the good thing is, and I know people complain about the Adobe subscription model, but honest to God, for $10 a month, I think it's a deal.
There's
Been a lot of
thanks,
videos
Michael.
on YouTube about this tool, so go out there and look at those things, and you'll gain some more knowledge and ideas of what to do and how to do it, etc.
Yeah, Greg Benz has a great video he put out. It's about 11, 12 minutes, and it's a waterfall scene that he uses the masking tool to fix, I got more out of watching that than a couple of the others that I've seen on it. But Greg Benz, BENZ, you can check that out on his website.
You put the link on our Facebook page?
I can't, but maybe David can.
Are you not on Facebook, Barney?
I am, but I don't use it.
I'll tell you what, Marty, shoot me the link and I'll put it on there. So.
All right.
So I have a suggestion.
One of the best videos that I have found in the short period of time this thing has been out by a guy named Greg Benz, B-E-N-Z. And it's called, the tutorial is Masking 2.0 in Lightroom and ACR.
That's just what I was talking about, Rick.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That exact one.
I hear he's not the best in the world. I thought it was a really outstanding video.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we'll shoot you the link, David. You can put it up on the Facebook page.
Okay, and I think Lou had a question.
Well, it was just about the fact that I'm sure everybody else on here are a lot further along than I am. I don't know how I get the things I need to catch up. And that's what I was hoping the club was going to do for me. And yet we get into moving things so fast that I can't really. So could we take a couple of those topics and go into them in more detail? I mean, could you have a masking session?
Yeah, I mean, we just got to hone in on a few particular topics. I mean, you want to do them on a regular monthly meeting or in some kind of separate class?
I mean, I think it's a class.
Yeah.
I'd sure be interested in that as well.
Yeah.
Well, masking is one of the most complicated things in Photoshop, and luminosity masking and blending images is make sure you have a good grounding in the basic tools of Photoshop and Lightroom, because without that you get, I got lost very, very quickly. So it's taken me a number of years before I'm doing an awful lot with luminosity masks right now because it's something I really wanted to understand. And again, Greg Benz has a number of master blending courses that you can get, and then and I'm a big fan of his Lumenzia plugin that goes into Photoshop for those that are interested in that.
So the other thing, this is Kathy, the other thing that I think would be really great from my experience, having to print for people who do all this great editing in Lightroom and then can't send me an image I can print. It would be really nice to add to the workflow, like how do you export that after you've made it all pretty so that it's the right size and the right resolution and the right format so somebody could actually print it, because I spend hours and hours and hours looking at images I can't print. So just a thought.
That's an excellent suggestion, Kathy.
All right, anything else?
That's cool.
It was great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks.
Thank you
Hey,
very much.
Michael.
Nice seeing everybody.
Thanks.
Yep. All right,
Thanks, David.
See ya.
I'm taking my
Right,
big sippy cup and leaving, so.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Everybody have a good day.